So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining our Scaling Social Annotation, How Nova Expanded Hypothesis for Student Engagement session. My name is Lisa Gillis and I'm a member of the Hypothesis team. I'm happy to have Kim Grewe with me today. Kim's an instructional designer with the Nova online team at Northern Virginia Community College. And Kim's going to share some insight into their experience implementing and scaling Hypothesis across their online courses, as well as some of the impact they've seen while doing that. Before we start, I just want to take a moment to remind everyone that you can turn on closed captioning on the Zoom bar below on your screen. You will also find the Q&A button on the same bar. Feel free to pop in any questions you have, and we'll do our best to address as many as we can throughout the duration of the session. So let's not waste any time. We'll get started. Hi, Kim. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. I'm
Hello.
I'm hoping we can start things off by having you share what initially sparked Nova's interest in adopting Hypothesis across courses.
Well, what initially sparked it was faculty interest. I first want to give credit to my colleague, Chris Kervina, who is at Northern Virginia Community College. I think she's still teaching English, but I know she's doing enrollment management and whatnot. But she kind of alerted me to it years ago when she kind of, as a grassroots faculty driven kind of thing, was promoting it. And then I started doing work outside of Nova, and a lot of organizations and faculty development were using it in the wild internet outside of the LMS. And and it's when I found out about the LMS integration and saw how that worked that I got interested. And then I started really promoting this on my team and with my leadership. And so, really, that's how it got started. It's a faculty driven kind of grassroots kind of effort at our college for sure.
You have quite a few courses using Hypothesis now. Tell me a bit about what did the rollout process look like at Nova, and how did you approach scaling Hypothesis from the initial pilot program to a broader adoption?
That's exactly how we started as a pilot. We always thought that's a good way to go. We can kind of test it, and also you all make it. You know, I want to sing your praises. Hypothesis. It's why I'm here. You all make it easy to do a pilot and to experiment with the tool, and so that we can see what it's like. And so once we did that pilot, and it was just with one of the English courses that I was the ID for on a faculty development team that we implemented it. And actually, a few faculty were a little resistant to it, but open to trying. So they gave it a try, and it was so easy to use that it really started to almost take off on its own. The other thing that happened that was just really a wonderful kind of perfect storm, if you will, is the time we were really fully exploring hypothesis around 2023, where we're working hard in the Virginia community college system for transfer. And so I was in charge of several courses that had to go from 6 credits to 3 credits, cover the breadth of material in a survey course. And so they had to totally be redesigned, but also it was like, how are we going to get students to engage with the material now? Now they have to read as much as they read in 2 courses in one. And so that sort of got us on the path. So it was a conflagrate. It was a perfect storm. It was just like different things came together that just made the timing perfect for this for us.
Can you describe how your team supported faculty in adopting Hypothesis? Especially, I know you mentioned some of them found it really easy, but overall, what was your strategy for making sure the faculty who were new to Hypothesis did feel supported, especially those who were new to social annotation as a concept, or even new to teaching online?
Right. Well, that's a wonderful question because that's a big part of, what I do as an instructional designer. I want to facilitate faculty process and help them understand and learn these new technologies that work well with the goals that they have. And so, yeah, that's some of the things we did. First of all, hypothesis, I want to say again, does provide great support and training. And so I would work with whomever the particular representative was at the time. And, you all been through a couple because you're a dynamic, wonderful, and vibrant organization and your brilliant people move on. But I've had great interactions and relationships with each of the representatives, from Aaron to Christy now to Brian, and they'll come and they'll do webinars for you. So your team does webinars for us. We did some of those. We directed some of those discipline specific kind of webinars that got certain groups of faculty involved. We have a Canvas resource site, and we keep the recordings that Hypothesis did specifically for us there, as well as several templates, boilerplates, examples that faculty can both play with as a student and play with as a faculty member and learn that way. And then the other thing is at Nova Online, we're probably unique compared to some other colleges in that we have a fully online division for our large community college. And we serve over 70,000 students at Nova. And so our online division serves at least 30,000 students. And we have a robust team, like we have a pretty decently big team compared to what other people sometimes have at other organizations. And we have a wonderful support team, their online ID help team. And they help with the back end setting things up sometimes because we do really creative things with Hypothesis. We combine PDFs into one reading so that students can do like sort of multiple readings within one. We couple it. Sometimes they're unstructured and students just have a free for all in there with a discussion as they will or what interests them. And sometimes they're real structured. So we have all these different examples for faculty to draw on that really would support their particular style or their particular need that they had to use Hypothesis. I will admit that I am English, I work with English faculty quite a lot and ESL faculty, so that certainly lends itself well to Hypothesis use. But there are other courses that definitely use it and have different ways that they use it. So we try to provide the resources for them there. Our help team does some of that back end setup that might be special because it's blueprint system. That's how we're able to get some growth too and sustainability because if the faculty team, let's say, who is redesigning English 111, which is our freshman composition one, decide to use Hypothesis, well, that one template is going to create all of the online sections of English 111, and they will all use Hypothesis because the reason we have this method is to keep consistency and quality across the courses. So that's another way we were able to kind of scale it up too. But again, it has to come from faculty who, decide to use it or not. I hope I didn't go off track too much there.
No, no, that's perfect. That's fine. Speaking about faculty and having to come from faculty, I'm curious about what kind of feedback you've received from the faculty who have been using it in their course.
All the feedback I received is positive. I have, and that's rare. That is a rare thing because, part of my job too is sometimes to promote a particular educational technology tool that I think is really helpful. And I'm not somebody who's just going to pull technology for technology's sake. And there are actually a couple other technologies that I support and think are really helpful for students, and I'm not going to mention it, the title or the name of the company. But despite my same methods of creating a demo, and showing how it can look, um, there's not the buy-in for that other technology. As a matter of fact, I've yet to get a team to decide that they want to use this particular technology. Hypothesis is another matter. It is so simple for the user and so seamless and so natural. It kind of does sell itself. I know I've said that, but so yeah, faculty love it. I even had one faculty member who was real hesitant about it and said, I'll try it in my face to face. And she was shocked because she didn't provide guardrails and provide structure or tell students what to talk about in the body of the text. And they were having these really exciting and engaging conversations. And she was really kind of surprised by it. So I've got complaints other than the technical glitches that sometimes happen with the blueprinting, but that really is unique. Fantastic. So we've been able to mitigate any of those that come up. I think we do really amazing things with it.
Thank you. And I apologize. I know I froze for a couple seconds. I'm hoping it's not my internet and that everyone else was impacted by that. Apologies if so. I was just a couple
I think it
seconds though,
might be
Kim.
my internet is because I got a
Oh,
message.
okay.
I'm sorry if it's slow.
One of us, one of us. So actually, you were talking about students in that professor's class who really organically took the lead and had this great conversation without the instructor even really promoting or prompting them to use it. My next question is about students. How have students in general responded to social annotation? Have you noticed any changes in their participation or engagement, particularly in online settings?
Well, I can't really give any data on that. I can only speak anecdotally to that. And of course, if you look at the data, which I think we're going to talk about in a little bit, you see some patterns that suggest. But I, I, um, I don't really get a lot of student feedback. From my end of things, I only get faculty feedback, and the faculty get student feedback. But I feel like it's something that the students are really into because again, it's not hard to figure out. A lot of times faculty, especially like my ESL faculty, they don't want to do a new technology because they're afraid that's going to just add another layer on top of everything the students trying to do. Hypothesis isn't like that, and they are able to use it with their students. So to me, that's an endorsement that the students are really liking it, as well as just the increased usage that keeps happening in our college.
Right, which does kind of segue us into talking about some measurable outcomes. You've mentioned that hypothesis has had a measurable impact. Can you share some of the data or outcomes you've seen so far?
Well, yeah. First of all, it's great again that Hypothesis has the nice data dashboard. So you can easily look at, like who's using it. I happen to be an admin for our um, instance, and so I can see across courses. And I did pull some data from the dashboard, or you did for me, one way or the other, but I was in there too. And I used my friend Star, that's who I named my chat GPT as Star, to help me parse some of the data. And yeah, so from 23 to 25 up to current time, um, our annotations have grown by 7.5%. And our shared annotations have grown by 8%, which I find real interesting. There are more replies, 11% more replies over the 2-year period. So it just keeps growing. And I'm talking about 702 teachers used it in 2023, up to 856 are using it here now in 2025. We went from 8,000 users in 2023 up to 10,300 users now. And something that's neat is like the number of documents isn't really changing that much, but it seems like the number of people and the number of annotations on those documents seem to be growing. So it's nothing but growth. There's nothing down, everything up for hypothesis usage. Annotations, professors, students are all seeming to use it. I was really kind of surprised. I thought English would be the star of the show. But it's actually a history class who is the star of the show. They have like the most engagement in this History 121 class for us, which is a first level American history. And also, my one course that doesn't use OER, it's an African American literature course. That course has over 2,600 annotations in it with a lot of high student engagement. So that's pretty exciting and interesting because I would have thought English 111, which I did highlight, would have been the star of the show. I mean, and English 111 is great. We have gone up 24% in annotation, 39% more assignments are using it in English 111. Um, there's users up from 3,000 to almost 4,000, up almost 25%. So I think English 111 is also some those students are benefiting, and that's at the first level. So that's a great place to catch students and help them develop those critical thinking skills and reading skills and collaboration skills that they're going to need.
Mhm. It's interesting what you said about history and English not being the star of the show. I think one of the great things about Hypothesis is that you can use it in any course. One time I too was very surprised to be looking at one of our partners, and the most active course by far was a dance course. And it always stumped me of how are they using this in this dance course to have this many annotations? What exactly are they doing? But faculty are finding a way to integrate it. We all know students, they want their students to engage, they want to build community, and they want them to think about their readings and do them. So it really does fall into every course. But I always found that quite funny that the course at that school
Dance.
was a dance capstone course. Um, I would also say is you're scaling your courses into those other online course areas. You're not seeing a lot more. You said you weren't seeing a lot more documents or assignments per se, but more activity. So I think both your faculty and students are becoming more familiar with the tool and the benefit because they're using it in more than just the English course. They've already gone through English and said, "Oh, I've used this in English, and now I'm taking it in history," and they're making use of it. So that's all great to hear. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment by Tracy Oberman, who actually teaches at Nova, and she's an
I
adjunct
thought that
English
name sounded
professor.
familiar.
And she said that she's been using it for the last 2 years and that her students absolutely love it. Thanks, Tracy, for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
Um, we might have touched on this a bit, but if you have anything to add, what metrics or indicators do you use to assess the success of social annotation at Nova?
Well, like I said, I will repeat if people are thinking about, using hypothesis at scale or at their institution, the dashboard, the hypothesis dashboard is really nice. Individual faculty members can access all of their courses and all of their annotations. And administrators of hypothesis then can look at a bigger picture at the institution. And that's a great tool. And then I know there are mixed feelings about it, and I am aware of the ethical concerns, and I have them too. Um, I'm working on being vegan. I feel like that offsets a little bit of my use, but I do use it, and it helps me parse data for sure. That's not a strength I have. So I use the data dashboard for my hypothesis, and then I use AI to help me make some sense of it.
Um, you touched on scalability a bit. What strategies have helped sustain and grow hypothesis adoption over time at Nova?
Well, like I said, I do think word of mouth. I think that when faculty use it and like it, they share it with their peers. And I think students too do the same thing. So I think that's one thing. What was that question again? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
That's okay. What strategies have helped sustain and grow hypothesis adoption over time at Nova?
Yeah, I think, yeah, mainly word of mouth and seeing the success. Luckily, leadership support too, I will say, because I have a wonderful supervisor, Karen Sever, and then our AVP, Cynthia Pascal. She is a dream, and they're so supportive. And once they get behind you and support, then they're promoting it as well. And so, just providing opportunities for training and helping to promote the training and using the hypothesis and trainings that we provide, because we just recently had an ID boot camp that Karen ran, and I know they used hypothesis in there some. We're using it in writing ourselves in, which is our quality enhancement plan. We have a lot of faculty professional development we do as part of that, and some of that is asynchronous work, and I'm facilitating writing ourselves in right now. We make great use of hypothesis. So these are some ways, by the word of mouth, administrative support, the numbers and the data that speak also, which is a way to be accountable these days. Those are all ways, just good word of mouth.
Perfect. Thank you. Um, how would you say hypothesis fits into Nova's broader goals for digital learning and student success?
Am I live now? Because you froze a moment. Am I
Oh, did
okay?
I? Yeah, it froze for a sec. I was just asking how hypothesis fit into your broader goals for digital learning at Nova and student success.
Yeah, absolutely. Our mission at Nova Online is to provide flexible, accessible, and high quality online education that empowers students to achieve their academic and career goals. And we want to have equitable access to exceptional online curricular and co-curricular experiences empowering faculty and students to thrive in collaborative and transformative learning environments. And I just really feel like Hypothesis fits the bill on that. It encourages collaboration. The collaboration in turn helps build community. And in our asynchronous online courses, we are working hard at getting students and faculty both engaged and helping them understand it's not some static entity. We can create community here. And I feel like Hypothesis fits into that so well. It is accessible. It's an open source product that aligns with our values and our missions. And our overarching, goals at the college, that's Nova Online, but our overarching goals, our core values include care, excellence, inclusion, integrity, and respect. And we want to have equitable access to high demand, high wage programs. So um, this type of work, it helps students do well. It helps them retain, and take the next course. So it helps with retention and completion, but it helps them learn collaboration and communication, which is so important for what workers are, what employers are looking for. So it just fits in all the way around. It's equitable, it's inclusive, it meets students where they are, it allows them to tap into what they're interested in and to work together to make sense of what it is they're trying to learn. So it's just great. It just really is great. And the technology is simple, but the impact and the activity is super great and super human centered. So I just love it.
Thanks, Cam. So we got a couple more minutes. I'm just gonna ask you about any advice you might give other institutions. So for schools who are just getting started, what's your top piece of advice for introducing Hypothesis to faculty or administrators?
Right. Well, I have several ideas there, and one is you can start like with the why, and again talk about the ways in which Hypothesis can really encourage student engagement, which is what we're looking for, active learning and equity. I'll say that word if I'm allowed to still say it in digital learning environments. It really is, you can really connect it to your institution. I was easily able to connect it to all of our goals, institutional goals. Um, as an ID, I don't just describe, I'll show it in action. So that's another thing you can do if you want to promote it or you want to get started with it or you want to get people interested, show them how the thing works, because I think that's a big deal. I also like to encourage people start small, I think with anything you're doing and scaffold, try it, see if it works, do one thing with it. And if you like it and it works and it's interesting, then you can build from there. Um, Align it with things you're already familiar with. And that's what made it easy, I think, for me, because all of my faculty are well familiar with annotation. Use it, Google Docs or Word commenting. So it's like they have a sense of how it might work electronically as well. But aligning the work with familiar work can be a way to make it seem less scary. The examples, the curated examples, which is I have we have a Canvas course site, which we have those curated examples and templates and boilerplates to help faculty. And then also get somebody like me who's a champion and an advocate and doesn't mind talking about it everywhere you go. That can be another thing to help you really get started. And again, I give credit to Chris Kervine that kind of got me interested.
And Chris was actually teaching and using it initially in a face-to-face course um, for her initial use case. Yeah. Okay. My last question for you is, and some of this you've touched on, but on a final note, what would you say to someone considering adopting Hypothesis?
Um, it's more than a tool. It helps shift the mindset so that you can think about learning as a more collaborative activity, and you can think about reading as more active than passive. We'll sometimes tend to think about reading as this by yourself passive thing. So that's one thing. It's more than a tool. It can help shift mindsets depending on your pedagogy, but it's more constructivist, more active, collaborative, and that sort of thing. Um, I would say it's a low barrier and high reward. I keep saying that the technology is kind of easy to use, but the impact is great. And so that's another thing I would say to someone considering it that it's worth it because the technology it's not a hard sell. You don't have to, it's not a big learning curve on how to implement it. how to grade it, how to use it. It's pretty seamless. So, and again, the asynchronous courses, this fosters community. I can't speak loudly and passionately enough about how quality I think asynchronous online and engaging asynchronous online learning can be if it's designed intentionally. And hypothesis definitely fosters that community and that human centeredness. It doesn't, it also supports inclusive pedagogy because students, can bring their own perspectives in. It can guide their own learning in the margins of the text that they're grappling with. And faculty gets stay in control. That's another thing that I would say. Faculty chooses the readings. Faculty chooses whether it's a wide open, annotate as you will, or whether it's a more structured, here's some questions I want you to look for, and students like it. I don't have like surveys we put out or anything like that, but you can see by the growth that it is it's popular. Students do like it, so that's what I would say and end with.
Excellent. Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to see you and chat with you and learn about how you guys are using it at Nova. Really appreciate your time. We will end here and give everybody 1 minute to move on to their next session. Thanks,
Thank you,
Kim.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.